Daniel had always thought of the old basement as nothing more than wasted space. The house had been in his family for generations, and while the upper floors were filled with memories, the basement was different. It smelled of damp wood and dust. The concrete floor was cracked, the walls carried black stains of water, and spider webs decorated every corner. For years, he had simply kept the basement locked, using it as a place to dump boxes that no one wanted to open. But now things were changing. Daniel wanted something new in his life, something that gave him purpose. His plan was simple: clear out the basement, fix it up, and turn it into a small studio where he could work in peace. It sounded ordinary, almost boring, but Daniel liked the idea of creating something useful out of a forgotten place. He could never imagine that this simple decision would open a door to something far beyond his understanding. He started the renovation on a cold Saturday morning. A hammer in one hand, a flashlight in the other, he walked down the old wooden steps. Each step creaked under his weight, echoing in the silence. The basement greeted him with its usual smell of dampness. He coughed, waving the dust from his face, and switched on a single hanging bulb. The weak yellow light flickered twice before holding steady, casting long shadows across the walls. The first hours were simple work. Daniel moved broken chairs, old newspapers, and rusty tools into piles. He filled several trash bags with forgotten junk, things his family hadn't touched in decades. With each load, the basement began to feel a little bigger, a little emptier. Still, something about the silence bothered him. It was too still, too heavy, as if the basement was holding its breath. By noon, Daniel was ready to break down the far wall. His plan was to remove the damaged section and rebuild it with fresh bricks. He set his hammer against the cracked surface and began to strike. The sound of each hit echoed loudly, louder than it should have. Dust filled the air, falling in thick clouds that clung to his skin and hair. He wiped his forehead and swung again. This time the hammer went deeper than expected. The wall didn't just crack, it caved inward, leaving a small hole. Daniel froze. Behind the hole, instead of more stone, he saw something smooth and dark. He stepped closer, brushing the dust away with his gloved hand. The surface reflected a faint shine under the basement light. It wasn't stone. It wasn't wood. It was metal, cold and flawless. He tapped it with the hammer. The sound was hollow, almost like striking a thick steel plate. But what was steel doing behind a 100-year-old basement wall? His family had owned the house for 3 generations. No one had ever mentioned anything unusual about its construction. This didn't make sense. Curiosity pushed Daniel forward. He widened the hole, breaking away more of the old bricks until he could see a larger section of the hidden surface. It stretched both left and right, far wider than he expected. The more he revealed, the stranger it became. There were no bolts, no seams, no signs of welding. It looked as if the wall had been built directly over it long ago, hiding it away on purpose. A strange feeling ran through him, excitement mixed with unease. His rational mind told him it was probably an old storage tank, maybe something left from when the house was first built. But another part of him whispered a darker idea. This wasn't normal, and it wasn't supposed to be found. Daniel leaned closer. For a moment he thought he saw faint lines glowing on the surface, like symbols or markings. They flickered so quickly he almost believed he imagined them. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and shone his flashlight directly on the metal. Nothing. Just the same smooth surface, cold and silent. Still, his heart beat faster. He grabbed his phone and snapped a picture, but when he checked the screen, it looked completely ordinary. No glow, no markings. Just a dark wall of metal. He laughed nervously. Maybe I need more sleep, he muttered to himself. But when he pressed his ear against the surface, something made him step back in shock. The metal wasn't silent. Beneath it, deep inside, there was a low vibration. It wasn't constant, more like a slow pulse, thump, 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 like the beat of a distant heart. Daniel dropped his hammer. The sound of it hitting the floor echoed like a gunshot in the quiet basement. He stood still, staring at the wall, his mind racing. Was it possible that something was behind this metal barrier? Something alive? He shook his head, trying to calm himself. It's just old pipes, he whispered. Just pipes. But the words didn't comfort him. Pipes didn't glow. Pipes didn't hum with a heartbeat. The basement suddenly felt colder. The air pressed against his skin, heavy and damp. Daniel's instincts told him to stop, to leave the wall alone, to seal the hole and forget what he had seen. But another part of him, a part stronger than fear, wanted to know the truth. He wanted to see what was hidden here, buried for who knows how long. He picked up his hammer again, his hand trembling slightly. The basement was silent except for his own breathing and the faint, steady thump beyond the wall. With every strike, the hole grew wider, the mystery deeper. Daniel didn't know it yet, but his ordinary basement renovation had just become the beginning of something far greater. Something that would change not only his life, but possibly the fate of all humanity. Daniel could not stop staring at the strange metal wall. The more bricks he broke away, the bigger it became. It wasn't just a small patch of steel hidden inside the basement. It stretched wide, smooth, and unbroken, as if it were part of something much larger. The air grew colder the deeper he dug. The basement had always been damp, but now it felt different. Heavy. Silent. Almost like the air inside a cave that had been sealed for centuries. Each time his hammer struck, the vibrations didn't sound like stone breaking. They echoed sharp and hollow as if the wall was hiding an empty space behind it. Finally, after hours of effort, Daniel broke through. The last layer of brick crumbled, leaving a jagged opening wide enough to step through. Dust rolled out like smoke, filling the room with a bitter metallic taste. He coughed and covered his mouth, shining his flashlight into the dark void beyond. What he saw made his breath catch. Behind the false wall was a door. Not a normal wooden door, not even an old steel hatch. This one was seamless, like it had been grown instead of built. It stood tall, with faint curves along its edges, glowing ever so slightly with lines that looked like veins of light. There was no handle, no lock, no hinges. Just a single flat surface, smooth as glass, waiting. Daniel stepped closer, his shoes crunching over broken brick. He reached out with his hand and touched the strange surface. It was ice cold, colder than any metal he had ever felt. But the moment his skin made contact, the lines of light suddenly flared brighter. Symbols, shapes, writing in a language he couldn't recognize. They burned across the surface like living fire, then faded again in less than a second. Daniel stumbled back, his heart racing. He pulled out his phone, quickly turning on the camera. He pressed his hand against the door again, but this time nothing happened. The symbols refused to return. The door remained dead and silent. He checked his video. Nothing. Just his hand touching a blank wall of metal. No light, no symbols. It was as if the glowing marks existed only for his eyes and only for a moment. A shiver ran down his spine. The door hummed faintly now, so low he almost thought it was his imagination. He leaned closer, holding his breath. Yes, it was real. A deep vibration, pulsing slowly like the beat of something waiting on the other side. Daniel's mind raced. Could it be some kind of bunker? A military experiment hidden long before his family ever owned the house? Or worse, was it a tomb? He grabbed his hammer and struck the surface hard. The blow rang like a bell, a sharp metallic clang that echoed through the basement. The sound didn't fade normally. Instead, it spread into the door itself, like the whole surface was alive with vibration. The symbols appeared again, brighter this time, glowing for several long seconds before disappearing into silence once more. Daniel staggered back, clutching the hammer tightly. His breathing grew heavy and sweat rolled down his forehead. The door wasn't just metal. It was reacting. To him, for the first time, he felt truly afraid. He turned away, telling himself to stop. He could fill the hole back with bricks, forget what he had seen, call it an old storage tank or a strange foundation. But even as he tried to walk away, he couldn't. His eyes kept pulling back to the strange shape in the wall, to the faint glow that seemed to rise whenever he looked directly at it. It was calling to him. Against his better judgment, Daniel placed his palm flat against the surface once more. This time he didn't pull away. The metal was still cold, but it felt softer somehow, almost like skin beneath ice. Slowly, almost gently, the lines of light stretched outward from where his hand touched. They curved across the door like veins, meeting at the center. With a sound like a sigh, the surface began to shift. The seamless wall rippled like liquid, parting in the middle. The door wasn't opening with hinges or locks. It was peeling itself apart, folding away into the sides of the wall. A blast of air rushed out, colder and heavier than anything he had ever felt. It smelled ancient, stale but faintly chemical, as if it had been trapped for centuries. The bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered violently, buzzing as though it would burst. Daniel stepped back, holding the flashlight high. The beam cut through the darkness inside, revealing a narrow passage leading beyond the wall. The floor was smooth metal. The walls curved like the inside of a machine. Faint lights glowed along the edges, weak but alive, like something that refused to die even after years of sleep. His heart hammered in his chest. Every instinct screamed at him to leave. But his curiosity was stronger. He stepped forward, one slow step at a time, into the hidden chamber. The moment he crossed the threshold, the door behind him sealed shut. The sound was final, like a coffin lid slamming closed. He spun around, dropping his hammer in panic, and slammed his fists against the smooth metal surface. No response. No opening. He was trapped. Breathing hard, Daniel turned his light forward again. The passage led deeper into the chamber, sloping down slightly. Strange markings covered the walls, glowing faintly with the same ghostly light he had seen before. None of them made sense, yet looking at them made him dizzy, like they were shifting every time he tried to focus. The silence was unbearable. Each step echoed too loudly. The hum of the chamber grew stronger, vibrating in his chest. It wasn't just noise, it was a rhythm, a pulse, a heartbeat. And then at the end of the passage, Daniel saw it. A massive shape loomed in the shadows. A giant glass pod filled with swirling blue mist. Within the mist, a figure floated, motionless, tall, and inhuman. Daniel's hand shook so badly the flashlight beam quivered across the walls. His mouth went dry. The figure inside the pod wasn't just sleeping. Daniel froze in place. His flashlight beam trembled as it lit the strange chamber. At the end of the metal passage stood a pod, large enough to hold a man, yet taller and wider than any coffin he had ever seen. It rose from the floor like it had grown there, its surface smooth and black except for the clear glass window in the middle. Behind the glass, a figure floated in thick blue mist. Daniel's heart thudded loudly, drowning out the low hum of the chamber. He swallowed hard, forcing himself to take a step closer. The pod seemed to breathe. Soft lights pulsed along its edges in rhythm with the same faint vibration he had felt in the basement wall. The closer he moved, the stronger the pulse became, like a deep heartbeat inside his chest. The figure inside was humanoid, but only just. It was tall, far taller than Daniel, with broad shoulders and long limbs. Its skin wasn't like human skin. It was dark, metallic, with faint glowing veins running across its arms and chest. The face was partly hidden in the swirling mist, but he could see enough to know it wasn't human. Its eyes, though closed, looked too large. Its jaw was sharp, almost armored, as if its skull had been designed for war. Daniel pressed a shaking hand against the glass, cold, solid, real. He stepped back quickly, his mind spinning. What is this? Who put it here? The house had been in his family for generations. His grandfather had lived here and his grandfather before him. None of them ever mentioned anything about a hidden chamber or a pod buried under the basement. This couldn't be part of the house. No builder would hide something like this. This was something else. The hum deepened suddenly and Daniel's flashlight flickered. The pod's lights grew brighter, glowing with new energy as if his presence had awakened it. Daniel stumbled backward. No, he whispered, his voice breaking the silence. The mist inside the pod began to swirl faster. The figure shifted only slightly, but enough to send panic through Daniel's body. The head tilted. The chest rose and fell slowly like a sleeping giant beginning to breathe again. Daniel ran to the sealed door at the back of the chamber and slammed his hands against it. Open, damn it! He shouted, but the metal did not move. The chamber seemed to tighten around him, pressing him closer to the pod, refusing to let him escape. He turned back. The figure floated motionless once again, but the mist had thinned. Now he could see more clearly. The being wore no clothes, but its body wasn't bare. It was armored by nature, plates of hard skin that looked like forged steel. Across its chest, strange markings glowed faintly like writing etched into flesh. Daniel's phone buzzed in his pocket. His hand shook as he pulled it out, unlocking the screen. To his horror, the phone had turned itself on, displaying not his apps, but a strange pattern of symbols glowing across the screen. The same kind of symbols he had seen flash across the door earlier. His phone vibrated once more, then shut down completely. Dead. The hum grew louder, filling the chamber like a voice. Daniel pressed his palms against his ears, but the sound was inside him now, vibrating through his bones. He fell to one knee, gasping for air. Then silence. Daniel lifted his head. The pod's glass was no longer misted. Clear as crystal, it revealed the being in full detail. Its eyes were closed, its arms resting against its sides. But even in stillness, it radiated power, like a predator that could wake at any moment. Daniel's breath came fast and shallow. He knew what it was now. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a coffin. It was a prison. A prison designed to hold something alive, something waiting. He backed away, searching for anything, a tool, a button, a switch, that might let him out of the chamber. But instead his foot struck a small console built into the floor. He stumbled forward, catching himself on its surface. His fingers brushed against it, and at once the console came alive with glowing lines of light. "No, no, no," Daniel whispered. The pod hissed. A crack appeared along the side as steam vented into the chamber. The hum turned into a steady rhythm, a heartbeat pounding in his chest. Daniel screamed and staggered back. The pod was opening. The glass split down the center, sliding apart slowly. The blue mist poured out, cold and bitter, wrapping around Daniel's legs like smoke. He coughed, stumbling further back until his shoulders pressed against the sealed metal wall. The figure inside shifted again. Its head tilted. Its chest rose deeply. Then its eyes snapped open. They glowed. Bright, unnatural light like molten gold burning through the darkness. The eyes locked on Daniel instantly. Daniel froze, too terrified to move, and then he heard it. Not with his ears, but inside his head. A voice, deep, alien, but clear. "Why? Have you woken me?" The words echoed in his skull, heavy with meaning. Daniel's lips trembled, but no sound came out. His mind spun with panic. The being knew he was there. It wasn't just alive, it was aware, and it was speaking directly to him. The pod groaned as the last of the glass slid open. The figure leaned forward, its glowing veins pulsing with new energy. Mist poured across the floor as it stepped out, towering above Daniel. For the first time in his life, Daniel realized he wasn't just staring at something strange, he was staring at something impossible. The chamber was silent except for the hiss of cold mist swirling across the floor. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, his flashlight slipping from his trembling hand. It rolled across the metal floor, the beam landing on the towering figure that had stepped out of the pod. The being stood still for a moment, its glowing eyes locked on him. Each vein of light across its body pulsed in rhythm with the deep hum that filled the chamber. Daniel's chest rose and fell quickly, his breath fogging in the freezing air. He wanted to scream, but his voice was trapped inside his throat. The alien, because that's what it was, there was no other word for it, tilted its head slightly, as if studying him. Its movements were slow, deliberate, almost cautious. It was tall, at least 7 feet. Its frame lean but powerful, every limb built for strength. Its skin shimmered like metal under the flashlight's beam, but the glow within made it look alive, not mechanical. And then Daniel heard the voice again. Not through his ears, but deep inside his mind. "You are not who I expected." Daniel's knees nearly gave out. He pressed both hands against his head, shaking. "No, no, this isn't real," he muttered. But the voice cut through his panic, calm and unshakable. "Human, why did you break the seal?" Daniel's lips trembled as words finally escaped. I didn't know." "I didn't mean to. I was just renovating. I didn't know this was here." His voice echoed through the chamber, far too small against the presence towering before him. The alien stepped forward, the metal floor groaning under its weight. The mist curled around its legs and the glow from its body lit the walls with shifting shadows. Daniel staggered back until his shoulders pressed against the cold sealed door. There was nowhere to run. The being stopped just a few feet away. Its eyes narrowed, the light inside them flickering like fire. For a long moment it said nothing. Then softly Daniel felt the words in his head again. "You disturbed my rest. Yet you are not an enemy. You are..." Unprepared. Daniel's breathing was ragged. "Enemy? What do you mean?" "Who are you?" The alien's gaze seemed to pierce through him. Slowly it raised one long arm and pressed its hand against the wall. The glowing veins in its body pulsed brighter, and symbols flared across the chamber walls. Strange markings burned into view, crawling like living light. Daniel squinted, his vision spinning as the symbols twisted and shifted before his eyes. In his mind, images came. Not words, images. He saw fire raining from a red sky. He saw ships enormous and black, blotting out the stars. He saw creatures with jagged bodies and burning eyes tearing through worlds. And then he saw Earth. His Earth, quiet, blue, innocent, and vulnerable. Daniel stumbled to his knees, clutching his head. "Stop, please, stop!" The visions vanished. The chamber fell silent once more. The alien looked down at him, its glowing eyes softer now, though still sharp. "You are Daniel," the voice said with certainty. Daniel's eyes widened, How do you know my name? The being tilted its head. It is written. The seal does not break without purpose. If I am awake, then the enemy draws near. Daniel shook his head violently. No, this is insane. This is not real. I'm dreaming. I have to be dreaming. The alien crouched down, lowering itself so its face was level with Daniel's. Up close, the glow of its veins lit Daniel's skin, and the heat of its presence pushed back the cold air. This is real, and you are already part of it. Daniel's breath hitched. His heart raced like a drum inside his chest. He wanted to deny it, to close his eyes and make it all vanish. But the cold metal against his back and the towering figure before him left no room for denial. The alien straightened again, turning its gaze toward the sealed door of the chamber. It placed its hand against the surface, and for the first time the metal responded. The symbols lit up, lines of light racing outward like veins, but the door did not open. Instead, a dull crack spread across the wall and the lights flickered weakly. The alien withdrew its hand, its glowing eyes narrowing. Too much time has passed. The chamber is failing. The stasis is broken. I cannot remain hidden any longer. Daniel forced himself to stand, his legs shaking. Hidden? From what? Who's the enemy? What are you even doing here? The alien turned back to him, its eyes blazing brighter. For the first time, Daniel felt something in its voice that chilled him more than the mist ever could. Urgency. They will come. They always come. And if I have awakened, then it is already too late to stop them from finding us. Daniel's mouth went dry. Us? What do you mean, us? The alien stepped closer again, its towering frame casting Daniel in shadow. The glow from its veins pulsed faster like a warning light. Because, Daniel, the voice echoed in his skull, deep and unshakable. You woke me. And now you are part of this war. Daniel's chest tightened. His world had just collapsed in one night. He wasn't just standing in a basement anymore. He was standing on the edge of something vast, something dangerous. He didn't understand it, but the alien's words left no doubt. This wasn't the end of a discovery. This was the beginning of a fight. Daniel stood frozen, his back pressed against the cold metal wall of the chamber. The alien's words still echoed inside his head. You woke me, and now you are part of this war. His legs felt weak. His hands trembled. All he wanted was to escape, to run back upstairs into the safety of his house and pretend this nightmare wasn't real. But the sealed chamber allowed no escape, and the towering being before him wasn't going to let him go. The alien's glowing eyes softened slightly, as if it could sense Daniel's fear. It lowered its head, its voice echoing once more inside his mind. Do not fear. If I meant to harm you, you would already be gone. I was placed here, to wait, to watch, to survive until the time was right. Daniel swallowed hard. Wait, survive? For what? The alien stepped back, its tall frame looming over the pod it had just left. Its glowing veins pulsed brighter as it spoke. I am Cairn of the Valeri. Long ago I fought in a war that burned across the stars. My enemies sought to wipe out all who resisted them. I was one of the last soldiers of my kind. When defeat was certain, I was sent here, to your world, placed in stasis, hidden deep beneath your home. This chamber was my refuge. Daniel's head spun. Hidden here? In my basement? That doesn't make sense. Why here? Why Earth? Cairn's golden eyes turned to him, sharp and piercing. Because your world was not yet touched. Your people were not yet ready to fight. Earth was safe, unknown. A place where I could sleep and where the war would not find me. Not yet. Daniel shook his head, stepping forward. Not yet? What do you mean? What war are you talking about? The alien raised one long arm and pointed toward the ceiling, as though pointing at the sky beyond the earth above them. The Malakar. They are destroyers, devourers. They do not conquer planets, they consume them. They drain worlds of life until nothing remains but ash and silence. They hunted my kind across the stars, and they will not stop. If I am awake, it means they have found your world. Or soon they will. Daniel's chest tightened. His mouth went dry. That's insane. If what you're saying is true, then Earth is in danger. The alien stepped closer again, its voice growing heavier. Yes, and you must understand. Humans are not weak. Your kind has survived against impossible odds before. That is why your world was chosen as my refuge. Not because you were hidden, but because one day you would rise. Daniel shook his head violently. No, you're wrong. We're not ready for this. We don't have spaceships. We don't have weapons. We fight each other for God's sake. The alien's glowing eyes narrowed. That is what makes you dangerous. The Malachar see you as unformed, as prey, but I know better. I have studied the fragments of your history. You are survivors. You adapt. Where others fall, you endure. It is your nature. Daniel stared at him, his heart pounding. Part of him wanted to run, to deny everything. But another part, the part that had led him to break open the basement wall in the first place, wanted to listen. The chamber lights flickered, a sharp crack echoing through the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling. Cairn looked up, his glowing veins pulsing brighter. The chamber is dying. My stasis lasted too long. The machines can no longer contain what was hidden. The enemy will sense this. They will come. And they will not stop until I am destroyed. And your world along with me. Daniel's voice cracked. Then what do we do? Cairn's gaze fixed on him, intense and unwavering. We prepare. You, Daniel, are now bound to this. You broke the seal. You woke me. And because of that, the Malachar will see you too. Your life is no longer ordinary. You stand at the edge of a war greater than you can imagine. Daniel staggered back, shaking his head. No, I'm just a man. I was fixing my basement, that's all. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a hero. You've got the wrong person. For the first time, the alien's expression shifted. Its glowing eyes softened, almost like sympathy. That is what all your kind say, until the moment comes. You will learn. Humanity will learn. The war does not wait for heroes. It creates them. The chamber groaned again, louder this time. The floor vibrated, and the pod behind Cairn flickered with dying light. The ancient machines were breaking down, their long sleep finally ending. Cairn turned sharply toward Daniel. Listen carefully. There is little time. The Malachar will search for me. They will send scouts. They will sense the energy of the stasis breaking. When they come, they will find this place. And when they find it, they will find you. Daniel's heart hammered so loudly he could barely hear the words. He felt trapped, suffocated. His quiet life had collapsed in a single night. And yet deep inside, a dangerous thought stirred. What if the alien was right? What if Earth really was in danger? The alien straightened, its glowing veins bright as fire. The choice is yours, Daniel. You can flee and perhaps live a little longer. Or you can stand with me and fight for your world. Know this, your people were never meant to be prey. They were meant to rise. Daniel stared up at the towering figure, his mind racing. He wanted to deny it all, to run away. But something in Cairn's voice struck deep inside him. The basement was no longer just a basement. It was the doorway to war, and Daniel had already stepped through it. The chamber shook again, harder this time, sending a crack zigzagging across the curved ceiling. Dust rained down. The hum that had filled the room since Daniel first uncovered the pod was now loud, almost painful, like a warning siren buried inside the walls. Daniel covered his head with his arms. What's happening? Is this place collapsing? Cairn's glowing eyes flashed brighter. Not collapsing, failing. The machines were never meant to last this long. They are breaking apart, and their death song will carry across space. Daniel's throat went dry. Across space? You mean, yes. The alien's voice echoed through Daniel's skull. They will hear it. The Malachar. They will come. Daniel's stomach twisted. He tried to tell himself it wasn't real, that this was still some insane dream. But then the light bulb he had left hanging in the basement above them burst with a sharp pop. The chamber went darker, the only light coming from the glow of Cairn's veins and the faint flicker of dying machines. The silence was broken by a strange sound, a faint scratching above them. Daniel froze. It wasn't rats. It wasn't wood settling. It was sharper, deliberate, like claws dragging across stone. Cairn's head snapped upward, his glowing eyes narrowing. Too soon. They are already here. Daniel's heart pounded. Here, you mean in my house? The alien stepped forward, his tall frame casting long shadows. Not yet, but close. Their scouts are near. They hunt like predators drawn to the signal of my awakening. Daniel shook his head in disbelief. No, that's impossible. I'd know if something like that was out there. People would notice. My neighbors would. As if mocking his words, the ground trembled beneath them. From outside, faint but clear, came the sound of dogs barking wildly. Then car alarms, a chorus of chaos rising in the night. Daniel's chest tightened. He remembered his street, quiet, peaceful, ordinary. And now something unnatural was disturbing it. Karen crouched low, his glowing veins pulsing rapidly. They move through shadow. They twist the senses of lesser creatures. That is why your animals howl. They smell the wrongness. Daniel backed away, his hand gripping the dead flashlight like a weapon. His mind screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The chamber door was sealed, the stairs to the basement blocked. He was trapped with the alien and with whatever was scratching above. The ceiling groaned again. A sharp crack split the plaster and a shower of dust rained down. Something heavy shifted on the floor above them, slow and deliberate like a beast testing the ground. Daniel whispered, "Oh God." Karen rose to his full height, his golden eyes blazing. "Daniel, listen to me. They will come for both of us. But they are not yet strong. These are only hunters, scouts sent ahead to find me. Together we can drive them back." Daniel's voice cracked. "Together? I'm not a soldier. I don't even own a gun." The alien turned toward him, lowering its head so that its eyes met Daniel's directly. "You have what they fear most. Will. Instinct. The power to fight even when all odds stand against you. That is why humanity was chosen. That is why you were chosen." Daniel's chest rose and fell rapidly. His body screamed to run, to hide, to deny. But deep inside something else stirred, anger. Something had invaded his home, his quiet life, and was threatening the world he lived in. The ceiling above them suddenly burst open. Wood splintered, bricks shattered, and a cloud of dust filled the chamber. Daniel fell back, coughing, his eyes stinging. Through the dust he saw movement. A shape dropped into the chamber. It wasn't human. The creature was twisted, its body long and jagged, covered in dark plates that shimmered like oil. Its arms ended in sharp claws, and its eyes burned like hot coals. It hissed, a sound that scraped across Daniel's nerves like knives. Another shape landed behind it. Then another. 3 of them crouched low, their bodies moving with a sick, unnatural grace. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. Oh God, they're real." Cairn stepped in front of him, his massive frame shielding Daniel. The alien's glowing veins blazed like fire now, bright enough to light the chamber. His voice thundered inside Daniel's head. "Stay behind me. This is the enemy. This is the Malachar." The creatures hissed in unison, their burning eyes locked on the tall figure. They moved like predators, circling slowly, testing, waiting for weakness. The sound of their claws scraping against the metal floor made Daniel's stomach turn. Cairn raised his arm, and the air around him seemed to vibrate. The glow from his veins surged outward, forming faint lines of light across his skin. He looked every bit like a warrior reborn. The Malachar lunged. The first creature leapt high, claws extended. Cairn swung his arm upward, catching it mid-air. The impact shook the chamber, sending sparks of light through the air. The beast screamed, thrashing, before Cairn hurled it against the wall with bone-breaking force. The second and third rushed from opposite sides. Daniel screamed and stumbled back as Cairn turned, faster than something his size should move. His glowing fist struck one in the chest, sending it sprawling, while his other hand caught the third by the throat. The creature writhed, claws slashing, but Cairn crushed it against the floor with a thunderous slam. Daniel could only stare, frozen in terror and awe. The chamber was filled with the sounds of screeches, crashing metal, and Cairn's deep, unshakable presence. For the first time, Daniel understood this being wasn't lying. He was a soldier, a survivor, a weapon, but the creatures weren't finished. The one Cairn had thrown against the wall rose again, its body twisting unnaturally, bones snapping back into place, its burning eyes fixed on Daniel this time. It hissed, crouched low, and launched itself straight at him. Daniel had no time to think. The Malachar scout launched itself at Daniel. Claws stretched wide, jaws open with a screech that pierced the air. Time slowed. Daniel's heart thundered in his chest as he stumbled backward, raising the useless flashlight in his hand like a shield. But before the creature could strike, Cairn moved. The alien warrior crossed the chamber in a blur, glowing veins blazing brighter than ever. His arm swung like a hammer, slamming into the Malachar mid-leap. The creature hit the ground with a crunch, its claws snapping inches from Daniel's chest. Daniel fell to the floor, gasping, the flashlight clattering away. His body trembled uncontrollably. He could barely think, barely breathe. But as the creature writhed, trying to rise again, instinct surged through him. He grabbed a broken piece of brick from the rubble and smashed it down onto the Malachar's skull. Once, twice, 3 times. The creature shrieked and went limp. Its burning eyes flickered, then dimmed. Daniel dropped the brick, his hands shaking, his chest heaving with adrenaline. He had just fought back, not with strength, not with alien power, but with the one thing he had left. Desperate human will. Cairn turned toward him, eyes blazing gold. Good, you struck. You fought. That is what it means to be human. Daniel's breathing was ragged. I thought I was dead. You lived, Cairn said simply. And that matters. But there was no time to rest. The other two Malachar scouts were still alive, hissing in fury. They circled the chamber again, more cautious now, their burning eyes fixed not only on Cairn but also on Daniel. They had seen him fight back. Cairn raised his hand, glowing energy building around it. Daniel, listen to me. More will come. Scouts first, then hunters, then armies. This is only the beginning. Daniel shook his head, his fear boiling into anger. Then why me? Why here? Why did it have to be my house, my life? Cairn stepped forward, placing his massive hand against the wall. The dying chamber groaned, lights flickering weakly. Because fate does not ask permission, it chooses. I was placed here to wait. But you, his blazing eyes met Daniel's. You were the one who opened the seal. You made the choice even without knowing it. And now the choice is before you again? Daniel's voice cracked. What choice? To run? Or to fight? The words echoed in his skull like thunder. Daniel's throat tightened. He thought of the world above, the quiet street, the neighbors asleep in their homes, the children dreaming without fear. He thought of his family, gone now, but who had once filled this house with laughter. And he thought of the Malachar, those burning eyes, those claws tearing through everything they touched. If he ran, maybe he could survive a little longer. But Earth wouldn't. Daniel's hands curled into fists. He looked up at Cairn, fear still twisting inside him, but something stronger pushing through. I'm not a soldier. I don't know how to fight your war. But if they're coming for this world, then I can't just run. This is my home, my planet. If I have to fight, then I'll fight. For the first time, Cairn's hard expression softened into something like pride. His glowing veins pulsed brighter, like a fire stoked by Daniel's words. Then you have already made the right choice. Humanity was never meant to kneel. That is why you were chosen. The chamber shook again, more violently than before. Cracks split the walls, sparks rained from dying machines, and the air filled with the stench of burning metal. The Malachar scouts hissed louder, preparing for another strike. Cairn extended his arm, a blaze of golden light building in his palm. Stand with me, Daniel. Together we can drive them back. But this is only the beginning. The war will not end here. Daniel bent down, picking up the broken brick again. His hand shook, but his grip was steady. Then let's make sure they know humanity isn't prey. The Malachar lunged. Cairn roared, his voice echoing like thunder, and his light erupted across the chamber. Daniel swung with everything he had, his fear burning into fury. The chamber became a battlefield. Alien warrior and human survivor standing side by side against creatures born of nightmare. Claws clashed against glowing light, screeches split the air, and Daniel's desperate strikes landed again and again, fueled not by strength but by something deeper. For the first time, the Malachar faltered. They had expected weakness. They had expected prey, but what they found was resistance. Minutes later, the chamber lay in ruins. 2 Malachar lay broken, their bodies twitching before going still. The third fled into the shadows above, vanishing into the night. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the crackle of dying machines. Daniel dropped the brick, his chest heaving, his body aching with exhaustion. He leaned against the wall, sweat dripping down his face. We did it. Cairn stood tall, his golden eyes glowing fiercely. No, this was only a shadow of what is coming. But tonight, Daniel, you proved what I already knew. Daniel looked up at him, his body trembling but his voice steady. What's that? Cairn's glowing hand rested briefly on his shoulder, heavy but firm. That humanity is dangerous. That you are not prey. And when the Malachar come in full, they will learn what it means to face your kind. Daniel's chest rose and fell, his fear still alive but tempered now with something stronger. Resolve. He had made his choice. He would not run. Above them, the night was no longer silent. Strange lights flickered faintly in the sky, hidden from most human eyes but clear to Daniel now. The war had begun, and it would not end the way the enemy expected.